Oh, okay. Well, if Tim would like a snack, there are bags of pretzels on the baker's rack. I think there are more snacks on there too.
Oh,
Just let
I think I'm like dinner right after this, so I want to see if I have food. So
fair enough. Okay.
Any restaurants between here and Rockaway you'd recommend that are open on a Thursday night fairly late?
Between here and Rockaway, yes.
Todd.
Party on, Sal.
Rock on.
Rock on.
Rock on. Well, welcome back, Podcasters, to another episode of the Party on Johncast, the most excellent and righteous podcast on the subjects of anything from music to theology to what we're drinking to whatever we can think about. So I'm the Reverend Sal Samarco, ordained minister of Word and Sacrament in the Presbyterian Church USA, in the validated ministry of hospice chaplaincy. Validate me, please. Yeah.
Always need it.
Always need it.
So I guess that's on me, isn't it?
It's up to you, unless you want to introduce Grogu.
That's true. That's true. For those of you who are watching, you can already see what's going on here. For those of you who aren't, I have Grogu, who is otherwise known as
Baby Yoda,
sitting on my shoulder, and I'm wearing a Grogu hat because I came from where? Walt Disney World, and I got myself a pair of Grogu ears and a Grogu. So here's the Grogu.
Rock on.
As for who I am Reverend Todd Laddick, the Rockin' Reverend. Not because I rock, but because I love to rock, if that makes any sense. And also, I'm an ordained elder in the United Methodist Church of Greater New Jersey, serving a church in Newton, New Jersey, sometimes remotely slightly higher than Sal on ground I am.
Occasionally.
You practiced that.
He did. Damn you, Calvin. Anyway. So actually we do...
Go ahead. Sorry.
Nope. You pretty much know Todd and I by now, and Grogu. But we do actually have a guest with us tonight. So, Todd, do you want to introduce our guest since he's a friend of yours?
Yes. The guest we have with us tonight is somebody who happens to listen to us. God bless him. But his name is Tim Booth, and Tim and I are good friends, and I'll let him explain.
Hey, guys. I'm happy to be here. My name is Tim Booth. I met Todd on a retreat that we used to help run together called the Search for Christian Maturity. It was originally a United Methodist-based retreat in New Jersey that has kind of developed and morphed over the years into something slightly different. It's a little bit more Pennsylvania-based now, but still with the United Methodist heart, but really the heart of Jesus. We both just served on that as volunteers because we loved working with the kids and spreading the word, and I think it filled us both spiritually as well. However, I'm the non-pastor in this equation, and I'm an energy consultant and sales manager with Shipley Energy in a town called York, Pennsylvania, which is technically the first capital of the United States for about 10 minutes way back in probably the 1780s. I live in Lancaster County, which is probably best known for the Amish. And I continue to be involved in search. Todd is moving on to focus on his church, but it's been I've been involved for a very long time, and Todd's kids have gone, and it's I hope someday send my kids. It's been one of the true joys of my life, and then of course meeting cool people like Todd and getting to guest on here with you guys.
Yeah. Yeah. So Tim's great. One thing that is for sure, Tim rocks on guitar, and he just rocks in general. Tim, you just rock. So you are the rockin' Tim, and I'm the rockin' Todd, and you're the rockin' Sal, and this show just is the Party on Johncast, which rocks.
That's all right. I'm not going to be like your guest from last year and play songs because I'm not quite there. I do, rock some Big Daddy Weave or some Chris Tomlin or whatever.
Yeah. So totally does. He gets us. In fact, he outdoes them. That's what he does. He outdoes them.
Yep.
Anyway,
actually,
go ahead.
I actually saw Big Daddy Weave. That was one of Allison's and I's early dates. We went together to see Big Daddy Weave and Jason Gray.
I remember that, actually.
Oh, very nice. How long ago was that?
Yep. Geez, that had to be 4 years ago, 4 or 5 years ago.
Oh, that's
about 5 years ago.
Jason Gray was just kind of starting up. Big Daddy Weave has some songs that really speak to me. And I'm not trying to overshadow the song segment, but The Only Name has been a huge song for Search, and some of the slower songs like My Story, and I know that's maybe about a year or two old, and just absolutely beautiful song. I love that guy's voice. I love the way they play together as a church. I'm sorry, as a worship band. And just, yeah, I that's definitely I don't have many bands that I want to see because the value of live music at my age is not what it used to be, but that's definitely one of them. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. So I'm switching us to gallery view because I realize that people are watching that might be easier for them to see, especially Grogu, who does not like to be out of the limelight. It's his show, though he doesn't say a word.
Whatever view you have is the people who are watching him.
Yeah,
that's funny.
Typically, yep.
Yep. So this is the way.
So this is the way. That's right. So this brings us to our Brews segment.
Hey guys, how do you know that God likes beer?
How, Sal?
He had possibly Paul, we don't know, write about it in the book of Hebrews, chapter 11, verse 1. But every time. Ain't going away.
You love that's right. That's
right. Every time.
Predestined. You are forced. If you listen to the show,
yes.
you're okay.
Yeah, I have to. I can't. So who wants to go first? Because we are actually talking about brews today, I think.
No, each one of us are talking about brews, except for Grogu. He doesn't drink.
He drinks tea.
Yeah, he doesn't drink
frogs.
Brew. Or frogs, right?
That was one of the more disturbing elements of season 2.
That really was.
Mm-hmm.
No. That is not food. Nap time. No! I told you not to do that. How many did you eat? No.
You gotta love him. Good guy. Good little guy. between him and Groot. I don't know. Okay. So who wants to go first?
I'll go first. So I was going to review, Allison got me some really good spiced rum from Cape Cod. I was going to review that, but decided on the way home we stopped to get wine, and I saw some Sam Adams cherry wheat. And this is my regular Renaissance Fair drink. So can't go wrong with cherry wheat. So it's a wheat beer with cherries in it.
It's a Vit beer.
Vit beer.
I went through a real Sam Adams phase like 7 or 8 years ago. And then I think I hit my quota. And I haven't had...
He checked out. He's like,
yep.
Adams is great. Then ding, 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 ding.
Yeah, it was a phase, but before my Troegs phase.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. So you...
Yeah, I'll go next. So I had brought Troegs Field Study, which is they come up with some pretty cool new beers, but they're all generally in the IPA family. I like to say when I order a beer, I love a beer you have to choose. Like I look for the one that just like is just the hoppiest there. But because I don't want to feel awful tomorrow, I'm chasing it with a Corona, which I have come to ironically really enjoy during the pandemic.
Yeah, Coronas are kicking. Well, awesome.
I mean, yeah. I've been really digging the Yingling lately.
Oh, Yingling. Yeah, you can't.
Yep.
That's America's oldest brewery, right? Supposedly.
Oldest brewery and still technically a craft brew.
And Yingling and Troegs, Pennsylvania properties.
Yes, both are.
Pennsylvania guy.
Yep.
So.
Yep. Pennsylvania represent.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, Sal, you're gonna love my choice, Richard. So I went, because I know you're a Calvinist, I went with your favorite brand of Calvinists. They're the Big C Calvinists, of course.
Little C. No. They're the little R Reformed, not the...
Okay, if you want to trigger Sal, this is how you do it. All right. Big.
They're what you call the Theo Bros. They're cage stage. They're not really reformed.
Yes.
You can't be reformed in your eschatology and nothing else. You have to be reformed in everything. Anyway, go ahead.
You're gonna go on a tangent. That may actually get us more viewers. That may not be a bad idea. Big Bad Baptist Reserve, and this is an Imperial Stout, your favorite, Sal, with coffee, cacao nibs, and coconut added, and aged in whiskey and rum barrels. It's hard to tell. Can you see the alcohol percentage on there?
This is 1 pint 6 fluid ounces.
Yeah, I think it was 10%, if I remember.
Now, you know a Baptist would never be caught dead drinking that.
True. That's why they're the big bad Baptist.
That's right.
On video, just to appreciate how much shorter than Todd I appear to be. Like I'm kind of halfway between him and Grogu. Like as far as
sandwiched between Sal when you look at perspective. It's like,
Daddy, can I join the podcast? Like
would you like a sip of the Big Bad Baptist Reserve?
I mean, I think you're about an inch or two taller than me, but I think my torso is shorter than my legs, and so yeah. But I think it's also the angle, but it's just pretty funny.
It's the angle. It's
Hi.
That's good. Oh my god. Okay. So let me tell you how this tastes. Ooh. I did it again. Oops, I did it again. I got another one of those chocolatey stouts that Imperial chocolatey stouts that I'm going to have a very fun time trying to finish. Cheers.
Is it too chocolatey?
It may be a little on the too. You know what it is I think they also have maple syrup in it. They brew it with maple syrup, and that has a sweetness to it that just makes it a little. What I would like my ale to be. It is very delicious tasting, definitely full of flavor.
It's like a dessert wine, but it's a beer.
It's like a dessert beer. Yeah, dessert beer. Right. Like,
so would you say it's any better than Sweet Baby Jesus? Sweet Baby Jesus is pretty similar, right?
Probably is. It's about in the same. It's the same range. Yeah, Sweet Baby Jesus. Yeah, yeah. This flavor makes you go. It's like this, right? You take a sip and you're like, Sweet Baby Jesus. Woo. Yeah.
Better you than me. I don't think I could handle that much sweetness in a beer.
Okay. And then add the alcohol. So talk about a headache tomorrow.
Well, then you wouldn't like Sam Adams cherry wheat because it's very sweet.
I do like Sam Adams cherry wheat, actually. This is sweeter than that.
For the rest of the podcast and how sweet we're just going to be.
Hey, sweet. Hey, sweetie.
We're just going to.
Hey, sweetie.
Hey, sweetums. Which is scary.
This is the way.
Which is scarier, that I said that or that I said that going like this next to Grogu and Tim?
Well,
snuggling with Grogu.
For those podcast listeners, he was slyly nuzzling up against Grogu in a seductive way.
And Sim said,
he was.
Tim.
I don't know.
Tim said, "Not today, Satan."
Actually, I said yes every day.
Every day, hell yes.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I don't know. Did Grogu give you consent there to nuzzle him?
I didn't ask, but Grogu is of little words. He doesn't say.
He meditates with the best of them, though.
Yeah, and he could lift me up and like a sack of potatoes if he wanted. So I'm sure that if I didn't have Grogu's consent, I would know.
Very true.
Talking about season 2 of Mandalorian.
I think
I know it's been out for like 6 months, but I feel like there's a lot there.
I think we could do that. We could totally do that. So I guess this brings us to our most excellent music segment. This edition. Yeah. This edition.
Yeah. This is Grogu edition.
There we go.
Okay. Who wants to go first? You want me to go first since you... Yeah, I'll go first. I have been listening to... there's a independent band named Danger Scene. They kind of remind me a little bit of 21 Pilots. They kind of remind me of like new wave, 80s new wave. For some reason, I liked one of their songs on Spotify, and it just popped up the other day, and so I was like, oh yeah. So they have a song. It's on an EP called Features. It's called Idle Eyes. I would read you the lyrics, but they're nowhere on the internet. Like, I guess they're such a small independent band that their lyrics are not online. So, but Idle Eyes is like this really. We've talked about this, Todd, the new wave bands that are like sounds really upbeat and poppy and happy, but when you actually listen to the lyrics, it's like, oh no, there's a message here.
Right. Yeah.
So Idle Eyes is basically about how we idolize musicians specifically, or celebrities. One of the choruses says, don't pretend to be someone you want to be. And it talks about musicians celebrities in general, being people who put on personas to cover their battle scars, is one of the lines in the song. And I'm like, yeah, that's pretty accurate of celebrity culture, putting on a persona to cover your battle scars. But then theologically, it kind of explains a lot of people. Like, we as Christians shouldn't put on a persona to cover our battle scars because, in all intents and purposes, those battle scars and those sins are covered by the grace of Jesus. But like we talked about last month, Todd, we're talking about Nirvana's "Come as You Are." We often tell folks to come as they are, scars and all. But when we get to church, people put on a persona because they don't want to. They're fine looking at your scars, but not their own.
Yeah.
So,
sure.
But I'll send it to you, Todd. It'll be in the notes, and it's one of those very good, like, it's got a kind of like a synth vibe, very peppy, kind of Oriental sounding, Asian sounding intro. But
yeah.
So the song is called "Idolize," but the band is called.
The band is called Danger Scene.
Okay.
It's "Idolize," literally like idol, I-Z-E.
Idol, I-D-O-L, eyes, I-E-Y-E-S. So like eyes, your eyes.
You said idol, like you explained it as idolizing, and I'm like.
Well, I think it's a play on words, like idolize, but idol eyes.
Interesting.
Cool.
Very nice.
Well, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So there we are. What's their name again?
So the band is called Danger Scene.
Danger Scene. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Danger Scene. It just fits with the 80s track.
I just found it. I found it in my plebeian iTunes world here, since you're on Spotify.
Oh yeah,
hanging out with all the 19-year-olds.
Yes.
Oh, did you see?
Well, I liked it on Spotify, and then quickly, because I don't pay for Spotify, I went over to Apple Music, which I do pay for, and
there it is. Okay, all right. Welcome.
Added to my Apple Music.
Yeah, I pay for Apple Music too. The majority of the world does. Well, I don't know if the majority of the world does or does not pay for Apple Music. Certainly, plenty do, but I don't know how many do versus how many don't. And so I went with Spotify because you can listen to the whole song for free. So we put the playlist together on Spotify, though you can convert it over to Apple Music, which I prefer.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah,
I think the last statistic I read was that Spotify to Apple is about 3-1. So for every 3 Spotify listeners, you'll have 1 Apple listener.
That's about right.
And I am in the Apple family.
I'm in the Apple family too, for sure.
Okay.
Spotify is not my gig, but I'm happy to anybody who listens. By the way, this is a brief intermission to say that we do have a shameless plug here. We now have a Party on Johncast playlist, which is on Spotify. If you type most excellent music playlist, it should come up. If you type up Party on Johncast, that will hopefully pull it up as well. Either way, most excellent music playlist, shameless plug, listen. This will be updated every month. So the music that we're reviewing now is going to get put in there for this coming month, and we'll just keep adding to it. So check it out.
That's all I needed. I mean, I'm losing the 1 and I'm joining the 3.
There we go.
I'm jumping over to Spotify.
Well, yeah, and you can. There is an app out there. I'll share it with you, Tim. There's an app out there that you can actually. It'll convert your Spotify playlist to a Apple Music playlist.
I appreciate not having that on hand. So
Share that with me too, because I made some playlists, including our wedding playlist on Spotify, and then switched over to Apple Music, and so because I'd rather,
it's all there.
I like to skip through songs, and because I have the freebie Spotify account, after 5 songs, doesn't let you skip after 5 songs.
Yeah.
Which is a pain in the butt.
Spotify. It's not cool. All right, so back on track. Tim, why don't you go next?
Sure. So although I claim to be a Pennsylvania guy, there's only 2 ways you know that I'm a Jersey guy, which is number 1, that I love the Jersey Beach. And number 2, I love Bruce Springsteen. So the song that's been on my mind is Blood Brothers, which I think has some of the best lyrics of any Bruce Springsteen song. I would say if someone were to ask me what my favorite Bruce song is, I would say my fast song would be Bobby Jean, although it's more mid-tempo, and my slow song is Blood Brothers. But This is from his 1994 Greatest Hits. And it's about the process of growing up and giving up your childhood dreams. And it's pretty brutal in its execution of it. So I'm not going to go through all of them, but some of the lyrics are, now there's so much that time and memory fade away. We got our own roads to ride and chances we got to take. We stood side by side, each one fighting for the other. We said until we died, we'd always be blood brothers. So it talks about the journey of beginning. That's the chorus. And it talks about the journey of beginning to become adults, but sort of what happens to that blood brother bond. And it says, now the hardness of this world slowly grinds your dreams away, making a fool's joke of the promises we make. And what once seemed black and white turns to so many shades of gray. We lose ourselves in work to do and bills to pay. And it's a ride, and there ain't much cover with no one running by your side, my blood brother. And so that sort of talks about where the dreams and the bonds of childhood begin to break apart. And if each of you think about your own childhood and maybe the people who are the most important to you, maybe you haven't talked to them in 10 years, you know? So in the third verse, there's a bridge that I'll skip, but the third verse is I accidentally brought up the live version. I meant to bring up the pure original version, but the third verse I think is just absolutely devastating. On through the houses of the dead, past those fallen in their tracks, always moving ahead and never looking back. Now I don't know how I feel. I don't know how I feel tonight. If I've fallen beneath the wheel, if I've lost or I've gained sight. I don't even know why I made this call, or if any of this matters anymore after all. But the stars are burning bright like some mystery uncovered, and I'll keep moving through the dark with you in my heart, my blood brother. So I like the metaphor of like the idea that somebody like picks up the phone and actually calls somebody that they haven't talked to in 20 years, but they're so disconnected by that point, and they've moved on with life in so many ways they don't even know what to talk about. But it's like, but you are in my heart. Like you are such a formative part of what started me as a person, that I don't know how to let you go. And I think that that's really profound and such an excellent example of the way that Bruce can just slay with his lyrics. And
he's an excellent songwriter.
Yeah. It really, it gives me, you know, I don't make it back to New Jersey very often. This is the first time in over 2 years, but you know, I'm going to kind of end up, this is my first stop in like a 4.5 day journey, just visiting various people.
Great place to start, by the way.
Yeah, great. Yeah, start with John podcast. So, and I, you know, here I am revisiting a relationship that's still relatively active. I met Todd in 2015, but like I'm going to see a friend on Sunday I haven't seen since 2006. And what is the value? What do you talk about with a friend you haven't seen in 15 years? And what do you still have in common? And you know, this is a friend who's very vocal about the impact that I had on him when we were in high school, but does that even matter anymore? Can you still maintain a current friendship anymore based on that? And if you can't, does it minimize at all what the value of it was at the time? So, yeah. So big fan of Bruce, and it's a bit of an obscure song, but Blood Brothers by Bruce Springsteen. Check it out if you're looking for a great song. Yeah.
Everybody knows that I'm the way you know that I'm a fan, I'm from Bon Jovi, among one of many ways, is my love of Bon Jovi. And
you meant from New Jersey, because you definitely said from Bon Jovi.
Yeah, I meant from. I don't know. There's something about this big bad Baptist reserve.
To be fair, he did name one of his albums New Jersey, so they're pretty interchangeable. So.
They are interchangeable. Yeah, Bon Jovi and New Jersey are interchangeable. I think Bruce and New Jersey are pretty interchangeable. Yep. And though both Bruce and Bon Jovi fans would disagree at points, I think actually the two are pretty interchangeable as well for being both from New Jersey. Yeah. Bruce is a phenomenal songwriter. His latest album actually has gotten tons of accolades, and he even put out a film about it.
There was like a making of for Letter to You.
Yeah, Letter to You. Yeah.
That's a pretty strong album as well. I mean, what's funny is what I just read off of was from his greatest hits.
Yeah, that's his
The only greatest hits he ever put out, and it's 27 years ago,
Yeah.
and he has consistently put out music.
and that's his
ever since.
that's his obscure
Yeah.
greatest his obscure greatest hit.
Yeah, and he
No, he's not a legend.
he continues to just put out more and more and more. And he's 70. He'll be 72 this year.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, he's older than John. I know that.
he's not touring this year, but he's going to be back next year, and I'm looking forward to bringing my older son. I don't think my younger son is going to enjoy it all that much, but I think my older son's going to get a lot out of it. I'd love to give him that Bruce experience.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's the same being a 72 or 73-year-old man running around the stage as it was in the more classic times, but I'm looking forward to it.
By the way, major shout out to the Canfields of DD Canfield, which we had on the show, who also brought up, Bruce, because they're from New Jersey, Hackettstown to be exact.
Wait, is this not Bruce's debut on this?
This is not Bruce's debut. I thought it was for a moment, and then I was back, and I'm like, no, we had the DD Canfield on here, and one of them was it Dylan or I forget which of the Canfield brothers, but they totally, it was it Devin and Dylan, right? Mm-hmm. One of the two, both are Bruce fans, but one was more of a Bruce fan than the other. One liked it because it was a part of his growing up, but it wouldn't listen to it per se. The other loved Bruce Springsteen and went to Bruce Springsteen concerts. Also liked Bon Jovi, and we were at the same concert together, and we found this out on the podcast. Lots of stuff, folks, happen on this podcast. You don't want to miss it.
It was the younger brother.
This next on the Party on Johncast, Donald Trump has been arrested. What? Mm-hmm. Oh, sorry.
Right. Fingers crossed.
I think it's
Troegs bowing in
the
prayer.
Organization. That's all. That's
yeah.
We don't date ourselves too much because it's the old news in a month. But it's the organization.
The org and the lawyer now has been not prosecuted, but has been indicted and
the CFO
pled guilty. Yeah, the CFO. Right. So we'll see.
Oh, he already pled guilty.
He pled not guilty. I mean, sorry.
Oh,
I just want to give false information.
Getting bad information after everybody else.
Hashtag fake news. Back up there, otherwise the bots may catch me.
Yeah. There you go.
Anyway,
what's your music?
Oh yeah, so it's on to me, isn't it?
Yes.
So I am picking one of my band I love so much, and I can't say that I've listened to them in a long time, but lately I've been giving them a real listen. And that one would be Pink Floyd. I've just been really digging Pink Floyd, and the song that I'm going to talk about tonight is Brain Damage off of Dark Side of the Moon, which is probably, I think that's their best album, I think.
Certainly their most iconic,
certainly
from The Wall.
Yeah, certainly their most iconic. I love The Wall as well. Pulse, their double live album. There's a lot by them that I love, but there's just something about the Dark Side of the Moon as an album that just hit notes and concepts that I think weren't necessarily being addressed in that time period, especially being the mid 70s, following the Vietnam War and the political fallout of Nixon and all of that stuff going on. And then you've got this band Pink Floyd that's just kind of like questioning everything. And in some ways, while they were progressive and totally like fit the time of the 60s and the 70s, in some ways they were ahead of their time as well. And really kind of were the beginning. I mean, while they weren't a part of the Gen X generation, I think that the Gen X generation, certainly you can hear elements of their concepts flowing through Gen X. in the way they question stuff. So
that's interesting.
Yeah, I really appreciate Pink Floyd, and the song is Brain Damage. Lyrics are short enough. And actually, this was written to some degree because one of their original members ended up having to leave the band and was actually institutionalized because of mental health. So part of it is
that wasn't Sid Barrett, the singer.
Let me see here. Pink Floyd.
I mean, he's the one who most like famously imploded.
I think it was him. It was Sid. It was
okay.
Sid. Yeah, it was Sid Barrett. Yeah, and he imploded.
Was he still around when this was recorded?
No, he imploded earlier on. So
Okay.
this is something that I think that they were just reflecting on, and I think it has other meanings too. I don't think it's just about him, but that was a part of the I think the thought process going into writing the song. So the song goes, "The lunatic is on the grass. The lunatic is on the grass, remembering games and daisy chains and laughs, got to keep the loonies on the path. The lunatic is in the hall. The lunatics are in my hall. The paper holds their folded faces to the floor, and every day the paper boy brings more. And if the dam breaks open many years too soon, and if there is no room upon the hill, and if your head explodes with dark forebodings too, I'll see you on the dark side of the moon. The lunatic is in my head. The lunatic is in my head. You raise the blade, you make the change, you rearrange me till I'm sane. You rearrange me till I'm sane. You lock the door and throw away the key. There's someone in my head, but it's not me. And if the cloud bursts, thunder in your ear, you shout and no one seems to hear. And if the band you're in starts playing different tunes, I'll see you on the dark side of the moon." And I think that song, in so many ways, encapsulates the last year or so. It's just like the last year, and I just can't help but hear that song and just be lost in the music and in the lyrics and just relate. I mean, I just relate with it. The lunatic is over there. The lunatic is over here. The lunatic is in here. It's crazy, but that encapsulates this last year for me. So that's my song, Dark Side of the Moon. Brain Damage on Dark Side of the Moon by Pink Floyd.
Yeah, I mean, I think it speaks to mental health struggles, which really, for me, never started until the pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
And your podcast has been a source of comfort for me at times in the midst of that. By the way, as I'm looking it up, it appears that Eminem also has a song called Brain Damage. So
that doesn't surprise me.
he's trying to steal that spot.
Yeah.
But I think more people are familiar with mental health struggles now than they were a year ago. And, 600,000 people dead in America notwithstanding, that might be one of the blessings of the pandemic is we're all a little more empathetic to that.
Yeah, I agree. And it brings me, it affirms what we do, I think, Sal, to hear that somebody like Tim is listening to us, what we share and finding comfort in that, in what they're going through. And I think that's what it's all about. I think each and every one of us have our own experiences, and the existential angst, if I can go into my existentialist philosophical background, our existential angst is that we can't understand each other's experiences and relate fully with each other because we're locked in our own subjective reality. But at the same time, we do, and that's the miracle.
We do.
That's the miracle. That's where I saw God. That's where Kierkegaard saw God. Somehow, it wouldn't be even possible, and yet it is. And there's no reason why that is. But God, for me.
That weird thing called, and that's that weird thing called empathy that I think is if we're strictly carbon-based life forms with existential minds, how do we relate to each other? It's empathy, and you could say that comes from God.
Yeah,
In a way.
Yep. So that's a great place for us to get back into, our main topic. Actually, not back into it because we haven't started yet. But
next Saturday night, we're sending you back to the future.
We're going to talk about the church and what church looks like post-pandemic. I mean, like, for so long, we were used to, those of us who grew up in church or around church culture, like, Sunday mornings, you were cut out to go to church and nothing interfered with that. And, and you went to church Sunday morning, probably youth group Sunday evening. And if you didn't have youth group Sunday evening, then more than likely it was on a Friday evening or some other time. And it was just a part of who we are as a culture. And I think long before the pandemic, that has been in decline. I mean, I don't think any one of us here hasn't experienced the decline of the church in some way or the other. Isn't that right, Grogu? Exactly. He says yes. And he said on his planet, there is no such religion. It's just the way. Just the way.
Convenient.
This is the way.
Wearing culture.
Yeah. Convenient. Convenient. Exactly. So, well, for him right now, that is his religion, because otherwise, what's he gonna do? Anyway, basically, to get back off of Grogu, you're in this place where, church is declining, and you don't even know what the future holds. Like, so as soon as this pandemic hit, I was like, oh my God. I think that as soon as the pandemic hit, Sal didn't have a chance to think or say anything because he was just running like a chicken with his head cut off.
Yep.
I was running like a chicken with my head cut off. But the difference is that I'm not in a medical environment, a clinical environment. So I don't have CDC guidelines coming through the top tiers of my organization telling me do X, Y, and Z. What I have is CDC guidelines that can be found somewhere on an internet browser, somehow, some way, through lots of Googling and reading and going, and scratching your head and asking questions. And so,
yeah,
I had to disseminate that information coming from the CDC and then translate it to the church. And
you didn't have to deal with CDC guidelines that change weekly, and then on top of that, have to deal with state health guidelines that said, "No, forget about that. Well, this is what we want to do."
No, I did have to change. I did have to deal with those things. I just didn't have the central structure telling me initially what things needed to be changed, and then our bishop very quickly, and I'm not sure all bishops did, but our bishop did very quickly, became like the point person for sending out information for what we needed to do each week. And as tired as you got to hear from him about that, it was helpful, because otherwise you're in the dark trying to figure it all out. So the whole point of this is that this pandemic forced us to go online and forced us to be a church in a different way than we have ever been before. We all had to make split decisions to make church thrive, and not thrive, but even just survive in this environment. And most of us were able to do that. Some churches didn't survive. I mean, there's no doubt about it. It's hard to have a serious conversation, by the way, with this hat on my head. That's all right. I'm getting all serious and the ears are like flopping.
That's all right. There's a yin and a yang to life. But, Sal, I'm interested to hear from the hospice perspective and then the chaplaincy, what it was like before the pandemic, what it was like during the pandemic, and what it's like now that we are, by most people's estimation, Delta variant notwithstanding, outside of the pandemic.
Well, before the pandemic, so I would say the first 12 months, pandemic's going on for 15 months now, 15, 16 months. The first 12 months of the pandemic, I was in a nursing home. before the pandemic, it was pretty much a balanced. I would do 3 worship services a week, a whole bunch of administrative work, and then when I could provide pastoral care to 200-ish people plus 300-ish employees. So provided pastoral care for basically a large church and maintained clinical guidelines plus charting plus worship services by myself. When the pandemic started, a lot of that got shut down. So not that I couldn't visit my residents. How I did that, because I was already used to doing, precautions in terms of isolation precautions, because, you'd have residents come into the rehab who have X, Y, or Z and, have to be on isolation precautions. Working in healthcare for the last 8 years, no big thing. I throw on a gown and gloves and a mask and do my pastoral care. The pandemic changed it in that a mask and gloves was every single visit, every single encounter. I couldn't walk around the building without a mask on. I couldn't walk around the building without goggles on.
Having done that work, that's draining. I know it's tough when every now and again you come to a room where you have to put on like PPE, and it's like, and you do it, and you're happy to be there with the person, but it just feels weird. It's impersonal, and then it's so clinical, and it's also work. It takes time to put that stuff on and take it off. So I know how that feels to do that once in a while on a visit, but you're right. During the pandemic, it was every visit.
Yep. And so for the first 6 months, I just canceled all of my spiritual activities. I would still visit if there was a need. No communion, no in-person worship, very limited in-person one-on-one, very limited in-person pastoral contact unless it was a one-on-one requested visit. And then the majority of my attention turned towards the employees. After about 6 months, I realized, okay, I can't just let my people find their own worship services. I started, like Todd, on top of everything I was doing, taking a couple hours a week to record and edit worship services. Instead of doing 3 a week, I was just doing the one once a week, but that's still five or so hours a week that I was filming and editing content.
And how long was that?
How long was what?
How long was that content typically? Just so people get an understanding.
So 5 or 6 hours for a 30-minute chapel service. So because
did you have like 30 or 40 nursing home residents at a time in corporate worship?
Corporate worship typically was 25 to 40 residents. In our main worship services, 6 or 7 in our dementia care unit, and then 20 or so in our healthcare worship service. So about 150 to 100 routinely worship. That's not counting our Catholic residents.
To sort of make the first cut in what we're talking about here, what do you think was the effective, the one that would consistently have 25 people, to them losing that time each week, and has that been able to resume?
I'm still able to visit that facility because I have hospice patients. So I'm regularly visiting with the chaplain there, who's there now, and he's just now starting to put in place the steps to restart it a year and a half after we canceled them. But it meant a lot of isolation. I mean, a lot of the pastoral care that I was doing for my residents was triage, like, okay, calm down. I know you're isolated. I know you're frustrated. I know you're angry you can't go to church and you're going to take it out on me. Okay. Assault me verbally. Okay. Now that you got it out of your system, let me explain to you why we're not doing it, and how that jives theologically and biblically. And then let me see how I.
So chaplains assaulted verbally too?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow.
Yep. Chaplains were, yeah. Well, some of my folks, they couldn't go hang out with this guy Todd over here in Grogu, so they couldn't complain to him, so they couldn't complain to me. So
yeah,
but
some of them.
But yeah, so some complained to both of us.
So I'm gathering that you maybe 3 or 4 months ago changed positions, and you're no longer with that nursing home.
So I'm no longer with that nursing home. There was a lot of isolation, a lot of burnout, a lot of because I had to balance. Essentially, why I left the position. At slightly below the pay raise. But really, the reasons I left that position was because, number one, there was so much isolation and frustration, and watching my residents steeply decline because they could not be socially engaged, and knowing that there was nothing I could do about it. That was a big part of it. But also, from in January, I announced I was leaving in December. I started chaplain hospice in January, but from probably September to December, when I was actively looking to leave, the stress and the burnout from helping the employees, because the employees were stretched thin and burnt out. I personally told my boss, I said, I'm looking to leave because I cannot take this anymore. I cannot support. All of my time is being diverted to caring for the staff because I have no time to do my job and care for my residents because COVID is beating the ever living crap out of our employees. Yeah. So, all of my pastoral care was focused on my employees. But I couldn't do my worship services. It couldn't focus on my residents, physically because of COVID and mentally because I was so sucked into the burnout of my. So for my own mental health, I had to say I need to step away because if I stay here, I'm going to be sucked into that black hole. And I was drinking enough as it was. I didn't need to drink more.
And to bring it back to the topic of the church post-pandemic, wouldn't you say that also in your particular experience as a chaplain for the most of that time, the majority of that time you spent as a chaplain as a director of mission and pastoral care at Bristol Glen, wouldn't you say that in that role, there were also many people there who just weren't able to connect with the technology? So technology is great if you know how to use it. If you know how to use it, have it, it's great. But in your situation, how many were, FaceTime ready? Why?
Yep. I think, FaceTime and Zoom became good part of our how we did do pastoral care and streaming church, but it had to be facilitated by staff members. I think I maybe had 5 independent residents who were tech savvy enough to actually find Todd's service online and bring it up on their computer and so
those are the people that would have been capable if they knew what they were doing. There are also people in a retirement community like that especially a continuing care retirement community, there are people there who, even though they may at one time have had, let's say we're 50 years from now and we're dealing with elderly millennials, like they know how to use the technology, but some of them may not have the capability of using the technology because of their motor functions and their memory and those sorts of things. So assuming that just because, millennials are growing old, they're going to know what they're doing is the answer to the problem, not necessarily, depending on what's going on with them individually.
Right. And even if they are tech savvy, technology that they grew up with and are used to is not technology that, technology is changing every couple of years. So even if they are able to be somewhat tech savvy, the technology that we have to stream church now is not going to be the same as the technology we have in 5 years.
Amen. Think about it. Think about it. The technology of the boomers, record players, records. Granted, records haven't gone far, but record
flip phones.
You think of all the things that like typewriter, all the
CDs
we used to use back then. That like today are like what? Like what do you do with it? Like like do you tie this like presents as ribbon? Like what is this stuff?
Yep.
Yeah, I mean
cassettes and CDs and So I mean, and
the technology of the future, right?
And that's another thing, and this applies for you, Todd, and the churches as well. Is that I know I'm doing pulpit supply or filling a pulpit this weekend for a church that I think they said they invested like $6,000 just to be able to live stream their services. Mm-hmm. And not every church can afford that. Not every CCRC can afford to have technology to stream internet video to the entire building. Right. I was lucky because I was able to jury rig the technology we had to do it. But then again, the church that just spent $6,000 on technology for 2020, in 2025, that technology is going to need to be replaced because that's how technology proceeds. I mean, it's just because you're up on the current technology doesn't mean you're set for the future technology.
Right. So we've established that one, the church really had to adjust in order to make the pandemic work. Two, not everybody is going to benefit from the technology. Just because you had technology when you were growing up doesn't mean that's the same technology you're using when you're older.
From not everyone can benefit from a knowledge and a skill standpoint, but also from an economic standpoint.
Right. Yeah.
Financial. Yeah. It's very much a class issue. It's
Yeah. And I was listening to that just recently on our shameless plug, most excellent music playlist. I was listening to Propaganda, which you suggested, Sal, Crooked, about how the system is, and it's like he hits it on every level how crooked. And that we can have technology to pinpoint where somebody is on the map in any given location in the world, but somebody like him growing up in the hood can't get phone service.
Well, I mean,
clean water. Yep.
Sal set both the emotional tone of the isolation and the loneliness and the mental toll that it took on him as an employee, and the sort of economic and barriers to entry tone of the technology and the economics. Transferred over to you, Todd, and to say what has it been like actually running a church with a congregation for the last 16 months, sort of the before, the during, and the after.
So for me at the beginning, I work very well under pressure. I just do. My best output is done under pressure. If I try to do something too early, I overthink it. It comes out like crap. But if I have no time to think and I need to put something down now, that's when I focus and I pull out my best stuff. That's just the way I work.
You heard it here first, folks. He writes his sermons on Saturday.
That's right.
I write my throughout the week, but I'm always tweaking, and my best stuff comes out at the end. And certainly when I'm in like crunch mode, that's when I work the best for whatever reason. So in the moment of the pandemic, I was listening to multiple sources. I had the clinical side of it from Sal and Bernie, who were on that end of it. I had the pastoral side of it from my DS and from other pastors around. I had what I was gathering from the news. And I remember it all happening just so freaking quick, and like just making decisions. And I remember one specific example from the current church I'm serving in. One of the leaders wanted to hold I'll just say it because I don't think she would be upset with me saying it, and without naming names. We hold at our church, we have a wonderful music program, a lot of talented people there, and we hold a unity choir 3 times a year. We had held our January one, which was Handel's Messiah, and we wanted to hold the one on Palm Sunday that we do every year. And obviously, if we got to the fall, that one as well. And when we were making the decision to shut down, I got asked by the people involved, like, does that mean that we can't practice in the building? And I said, yeah, that's what that means. We're closing the building down. Everything must be done remotely. We can't have a ton of people here singing and spreading their germs and possibly, spreading the virus. And she respected that. The person I talked to respected that and understood it, and that was that. But I got an email a couple days later from the same person saying, I'm so glad that you stuck to your guns. And she sent me a link to a
He's continues.
scripture throwing back and forth.
It's